My name is Dibz, and I'm here with an introductory Starcraft 2 video to help you determine whether or not Zerg is the right race for you to play. I'm going to be going over how Zerg really works, how they macro, and the overall general idea of how to play Zerg. So let's start. First, you want to go under the multiplayer tab here and go versus AI. And under versus AI, you want to click 1VAI and click Zerg, because that's the race we're going to be playing. If you're new to StarCraft and you haven't played any AI before, there's going to be a no bar here, and it's going to be very easy. But since I've played a little bit of games, I've gotten AI up to hard. And if you played a lot of Protoss and Terran, you might even be up to Elite. But if you want to play like a different Zerg game or a different race and play Zerg, what you can do is go to Custom, and instead of playing an Elite and you just want to practice, you go to 1v1 maps, you go to Create Game, and then you would select Zerg as a race, and you would click AI. You would right-click empty and click AI, and then click whatever race or whatever difficulty you want to play. But we're going to first start off very easy, since Zerg might be the new race that you're playing, and you would just start game. But for those who have never played before, you would want to go multiplayer versus AI, and go under 1VAI and go Zerg. So we're going to start with this first. And when we get in, I'm going to be going over a few settings that I like to use. So it depends on what kind of computer you have. If you have the most up-to-date computer, of course, you can run everything on Ultra. But if you're first starting out and you don't have that great of a computer, what you want to do is you want to lower your graphics as much as you can to make it still playable but enjoyable for you to play as well. The thing is, if you have really high graphics on, it will lag the computer a little bit, and it might actually interfere with your playing. So first, you want to push F10, and then you go to Options. Under Options, you go to Graphics. I like to play windowed full screen mode because that's just what I like to play. The graphics quality, you can go for medium, whatever you want. You would have to test out what kind of computer you have first. Right now I have the GTX 970, and I can pretty much run everything on Ultra just fine. So if you have anything close to that, medium, high, Ultra should be just fine. A lot of the pro players actually play on low settings because it runs a very low risk on affecting your computer and having in-game lag and all of that. So that's pretty much everything that you want to change, and just pretty much just play around with it, see what you like, see what your computer can handle and what it cannot. Next, we're going to go to sound. You want to leave everything on. I think master volume would be here. You can turn on the music if you want. I usually like to play my own background music when I play. Voice chat you can skip. Mouse and keyboard. Here's the mouse and sensitivity. For mouse sensitivity, you would want to have at about 55%. Because if you have a really slow mouse sensitivity, it's going to take a long time for this cursor here to move around your screen. This is a very fast-paced game. You're going to be selecting things here and there, and you want a pretty high sensitivity for this game. So I usually have around 55%. Everything else, the scrolling as well. For enable scrolling mouse scroll, the thing is, the mouse scroll speed is pretty much when you move your mouse on a corner of the screen, how fast it will scroll on this mini-map here. As you can see it right here. So you kind of want it to have a little bit of a fast speed because you want to basically, again, move across the map as fast as you can at a comfortable pace. So choose whichever one you think is nice for you, but I think 68% is really good for me as well. You can choose 68% or 65% for keyboard scroll speed as well. Actually, this doesn't even matter. You don't need keyboard scroll speed. Keyboard scroll speed is what you're going to be using for the arrow keys when you move around the map, and you don't want to be using that at all when you play this game. It's going to be too slow. So drag scroll speed. You don't use that at all either. So under the gameplay tab, you want to have show alerts checked, display build grid checked, always show worker status checked. Enabled full command card, you want that unchecked if you're new to the game, because this will explain to you what all the buttons do and what everything is all about. Show current indicator, select all of, you want both of those checked as well if you're playing Zerg. Unit life bars is very useful for me to have it always on, so you know exactly how much life all the units have. Because if you know how much life your units have, you're able to micromanage them a lot more easily. Control groups, you can make them unclickable or clickable, it's up to you. Show flyer helper, well, is always good, because basically it tells you where the ground location of an air unit is. I'll go into detail about that later in another video. Game speed will be faster. Enable enemy unit selection. This is very important because when you're playing against another player, what you're going to be making is based off of what you see in your opponent's base. So let's say you see your opponent making this certain amount of units, or this kind of units. What you want to do is you want to be able to build a unit that counters that unit. In order to do that, you have to enable enemy unit selection. Display experience points is up to you. Allow window restore, blah, blah, blah. Everything else here I don't think is important. Colorblind mode, you can have this on and off, it doesn't matter. Everything else I think is okay. Oh, for hotkeys. One thing I really want to talk about is the type of hotkey setup you have. Right now, I am using the default because that's what I started off playing Starcraft with, and I got used to it. If you want to switch to a different hotkey setup, there's the core, there's the grid, and there's the default, which are the most popular ones that people use. I know a lot of people that use the core, and they say the core is a lot better. But if you're already used to the default one, I suggest you stick with the default one because there's a lot of trouble for you to switch to the core. Because one thing is you have to forget the default hotkeys, and then you have to input another one into your memory. So I find out that it's really difficult to change to another one. But if you're first starting out in StarCraft and this is new to you, I would suggest try out the core at least, see if you like it. If you don't, just go ahead with the default one. And I think that is about it for all of the settings. Yeah, okay, so let's just start off with the game now. Let's see. Alright, let's return to game. Alright, so let's just talk about Zerg as a whole. Well, as you can see, I realized that my camera was blocking the hotkey setup here. So I had to change it, and now I'm at a different location. But yeah, anyway, let's just talk about Zerg as a whole. Zerg's main building is the hatchery, which you can say that is Terran's command center, or the Nexus, or Protoss' Nexuses, where all the probes come out and all the SCVs come out of. But the main difference is that this hatchery can not only make drones, it can also make Overlords, which are your supply, which are these things. These are flying around. They can also fly as well. Your supply can actually fly. You know, how crazy is that? But yeah, it makes supply, it makes drones, and also it makes all of your units. The way that Zerg works is that in order to make a certain specific kind of unit that you want to make, all you have to do is make one building, and then you have to tech path to that specific unit, and then you can just keep making all those units. But if you lose it, then of course you're not going to be able to make them anymore. So you just have to make sure that you keep on top of it, make sure they survive, and yeah, just make sure that you always have those type of units or types of buildings. This creates a lot of difference or a lot of fluidity in how Zerg changes tech. I find that it's much more smooth compared to working with Terran and the Protoss, because if you make that one building, one tech building as Zerg, you can just create all of your units at once with all this larva that's spawning out here. As you can see, instead of like the Terran and Protoss, which only makes one unit at a time per building, Zerg can make all of their units at the same time, as long as they have the larva production. So that's one of the most important parts of Zerg as a whole and how they work is the larva production. That makes it super different from Protoss and Terran, and it just makes it more flexible and fluid to tech up and use their units, I feel like. Now, one advantage that Zerg has, or one disadvantage that Zerg has, is that Protoss and Terran are able to make walls off their ramps so that units can't get in. Zerg can only make buildings that are on creep. So in order to do that, you have to spread your creep out all the way here with creep tumors, which I'll show you in a bit from Queens. But yeah, it's hard for you to defend against early potential attacks. Whereas Protoss and Terran, they can make a wall right away, you can't get in, and it's easier for them to defend. So Zerg is a little bit more vulnerable in the beginning, and this makes your scouting and knowledge of the map and what your opponent is doing very important in the game. And for that reason, Zerg tends to be known as one of the most aggressive races in the game, because they have to make units to defend, and if you have all these units, you might as well attack your opponent with them, right? So yeah, if you feel like you like to play aggressively, then Zerg might be something that you want to try out, or at least play a little bit. Alright, so let's move on specifically to macro and how Zerg makes units and increases their production. Zerg is considered one of the races where they always have a mass amount of units, where that's where this word Zergy comes from, where there's like a Zerg that just comes out and just surrounds everything and just blows it up and kills it. That's where Zerg comes from. Yeah, as you can tell, you can either use all of your hatcheries and create all of your units at once, or you can use hatcheries and create drones all at once. That's the main difference in Protoss and Terran, or Protoss, Terran, and Zerg, is that Zerg is able to get their economy out faster than any other race, because you can make, let's say right now I can make, I only have 2 hatcheries, and I can make 4 drones at once already, compared to Protoss and Terran. In order to make 4 probes at once, you need 4 nexuses, right? So that's the main idea behind Zerg and how they usually get ahead on economy. First, you make all of your drones at once, get that good economy. Then later, when you know you need your units, you make all of your units all at once. That's the most fun part, but also the most challenging part of Zerg is knowing when to drone, when to make your units, and figuring out what your enemy is going for, and trying to defend everything pretty much. That's why Zerg is known as the most reactive race. I'll go into more detail on knowing exactly when to defend or when to make units. That's a little bit more on the higher end. But right now I'm just giving you a general detail of how Zerg works and what you're going to be thinking about and how it usually plays out. So right now, the focus of the macro on Zerg are queen injects. So queens are these units that I have here. They spawn from the hatchery by Q. They are the core of pretty much the Zerg race overall. You know how you hear about the Zerg queen? This is why they're called the queen, because they are the most essential part of the Zerg macro. What they do is they have abilities, like any other game. They're kind of like a caster. They have C for spawn creep tumors. These creep tumors, when you spawn them on the ground, they do that. What they do is that they spawn this creep in a radial manner. Pretty much what you can do is you can spawn this creep all over the map. It also gives you vision, and it also gives you, or creep also gives you a speed advantage for your units. Each unit gains, I think, about 30% extra speed on creep. So it's super important for you to have all of these queens spreading creep. So as you can see, this is what a creep tumor looks like. The one with color on it means this is the one that you can move across. What you do is you push the creep button again, and it spreads itself. So you only need to spread one, honestly, and it just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading. The ones that don't have any color are the ones that you've spread from, and you can't spread from anymore. So what you want to do is you just want to gain as much creep on the map and just take it over. Taking over the map as Zerg is the main idea of Zerg. You want to be the swarm. You want to take over the entire map. You want to have all these bases. You want to have all the vision on the map. So that's exactly what the Zerg queen does for Zerg. It can also attack air, it can do a bunch of other stuff, and also it can transfuse, which is heal your units. That's one of the most important things that you use later on in the game too. It requires a little bit more micro, but it's super important in the later game. Alright, so for every hatchery that you have, you will have to have, or you would want to have, one queen injecting it. Because every time you queen inject, you gain 4 extra larvae. And this larva is super important because they act as your production buildings. If you don't have any larvae and a unit is coming to attack you, you can't make any units. How are you going to defend it, right? So one way to help macro or help keep your larva count high and your money low is to create additional hatcheries. And for every hatchery you want to have one queen injecting it. So this will help you, this will help you a lot, yes. But the main thing is that if you've watched Starcraft 1 games, or if you've ever played Starcraft 1, the only way for you to gain additional larvae is to create additional hatcheries. So in Starcraft 1 games, you would see like a bunch of hatcheries everywhere like that. And this is pretty much the same idea in Starcraft 2, except if you have queens and you stay on top of your queens, you'll be able to negate having all of these. You only probably need one extra one of these in order to have the amount of larvae to produce. So that's one part that's important in playing Zerg as well, keeping your macro up and consistently injecting and spreading your creep as well. As you can see, I'm spreading my creep here towards the left side because that's where my enemy is here. I scouted with my overlords. This was very important because it tells you where your opponent is and you know where to attack, you know where they're coming from. So the main idea of Zerg is to have vision of the map, to take it over, to know what's going on with your enemy. Let's see what else. Remember, yeah, this is an economic game. You want to get your economy out as fast as possible, get bigger than your opponents, and just create units and just pretty much overwhelm him. That's the idea of Zerg and how to beat your opponent. Get a bigger economy, get a bigger army, and then run them over with it. But how does Zerg gain map control? Well, I already talked about a few ways that Zerg gains map control. That's Overlord spread, creep spread. Zerg has the fastest units in the game, so what you can do is you can grab one of these units, and you can also just send it to a watchtower, and this watchtower gives you vision of that specific area. I feel that is something that's very important for you to do too, because you can see I can see my enemy's units right here. This is all he has. So right now I feel pretty safe. You know, if you feel safe, you can keep joining up, you can keep making units, or do whatever you want. Honestly, as long as you know that he's not attacking you, then you're fine. One thing I want to point out as Zerg is that it is super important to know what your opponent is doing, because you want to know when your opponent is going to attack you. And when you do that, when you know that, knowing that will help you figure out when to stop droning. That is the most important part of Zerg, because I had a lot of trouble with that when I first started out, because I would always make all these drones and I wouldn't make any army, and all of a sudden there'd be an army in front of my base and I wouldn't know what to make, and it'll be too late pretty much to react. So the main important part of Zerg is knowledge of your opponent's status. What is he doing? Is he making drones? Is he going to attack me? Etc. etc. One way. That's why I stressed on getting vision, spreading creeps, spreading overlords. That's why I always stress that very much when you're playing Zerg. But yeah, Zerg and Protoss, Terran and Protoss have different ways of getting mad vision as well. It's a little bit different than Zerg, as it's a little bit harder for them to push out, as Zerg has, is able to be very mobile and is very fast-paced compared to all the other races. And that's one of the main reasons why I like it. If you're just starting out as Zerg, or just Starcraft in general, what I suggest is start off with one base, and just try to stick with one base and keep your money low, up to like maybe 100 to 200 minerals. Spend all your money on one base, and then once you're comfortable with that, move on 2 bases, move on to 3 bases, and then move on to 4. And just keep doing that. Right now I'm not doing very well because I'm trying to cover all of my points, and I'm not really going to care about this game that much anymore. But other than just trying to just be an idea of what Zerg is really all about. So yeah, but just to recap, Zerg is mostly the most reactive race. They have the ability to see potential counters and weaknesses in opponent's army composition, and then react accordingly. In Legacy of the Void, they are a little bit more balanced on being offensive than defensive, because a lot of people like to rush in Legacy of the Void. It's a much faster paced game. Zerg may not be the most offensive race, but they have the capability of being defensive as well, I would say. The advantages of Zerg I would go over, again, are creep spread. See, I have the vision of this entire side of the map. I can tell when he's going to be coming to attack mark. So you won't be in the dark as long as you spread your creep very well. So that's one advantage of Zerg. Another one is you're able to macro up a lot quicker. You can make a lot of more drones quickly. You can also make a bunch of units quickly. Yeah, other than that, I feel like those are the 2 main advantages of Zerg. Also remember that when you do creep spreading, these cannot be seen. These creep cannot be seen unless they have vision of it. Pretty much they have to have somebody that can detect invisibility. These are all invisible units that give you vision. Other than this Overseer, as you can see it though. But yeah, that's what makes Zerg very, very powerful with the vision that they have. I just want to go see if I went over everything. Yeah, Zerg is the most active race. They require the most APM. If you feel like you always want to be on doing something and not just waiting around sometimes for like upgrades to happen or whatever, Zerg is the most active race. I feel like it's the most challenging as well. I enjoy playing it the most. There's always something to do, honestly. There's creep spread to be doing. There's Overlord spreading to do. There's Injects to be doing. There's droning to do. There's, you gotta figure out what to do against your opponent. You have to see whether they're coming out. There's just way too many things to do as Zerg to ever be bored or anything, which is why I like to play it. So yeah, there are different ways to macro, or specific ways to macro, when to drone, when not to drone. I'll go into another video of that and the best efficient way to make your army and make your drones. I'll go over that in another video. Just let me know if you want me to go over another video, what you guys want to see. Let me know what you'd be interested in. I'll do another video as soon as I can. I'll probably be doing another Zerg video. I also do streaming as well. It's in the what you call it? In the summary. It's in the summary. You can check it out. I stream every now and then, and I like to give commentary and explain what I'm doing as well. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think about this video, what you guys want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.